What's up, guys? I'm back again today. It's been a beautiful week, but it's a little bit colder today. Doesn't mean we're not going to get stuff done. I just got back yesterday. I picked up this load. This guy was giving this stuff away for free. He said it was for scrap. I don't know how many people messaged him about scrap, but I messaged him and said, hey, don't scrap that. Like, I want to use that stuff. Look at it. It's heavy wall pipe. There's some square tube in there, and then a job box. He said it's got a little rust hole in the bottom, but that's not scrap. I mean, I'm gonna reuse that stuff, or I'll make sure somebody else does. Anyway, I got rid of the camper. That's a whole different story. I'm gonna add that on the video, but I did that yesterday too. And then last night we had a windstorm and the neighbor's roof was blowing off, so I took my bucket truck over there and put some screws in a roof panels for. But the project today, I'm working on this 75 Ford Supercab, and this thing, it's got a 360 V8. It's two-wheel drive. It is a really cool looking truck. Like, I hate the word patina, but if you look at this thing, I mean, come on, it's got a little rust, but tell me that thing's not cool looking. And it sits kind of low. It's like, it's long and low to the ground. So a couple years ago, before I had my YouTube channel, I picked up a Crown Vic subframe. Actually, I picked up an entire Crown Vic, and we did a bunch of burnouts in it. We cut the roof off and stuff. I actually think I have some videos of us doing burnouts in the driveway and the convertible reveal. So that was a lot of fun. But anyway, when all was said and done, after it slowed down traffic in my neighborhood by being parked out by the road looking like a cop car for a while, I stripped the 8.8 and the aluminum front subframe off of it. It's a really common swap on older F100s. This actually is an F100. I haven't seen very many other Supercabs that are F100s. I checked the VIN, it actually is. It's kind of random, like a long bed F100. But the issue today is this truck ran and drove. Like, I used to take this thing to Home Depot, and it always leaked a lot of transmission fluid. And by a lot, I mean, like, I'd have to put a couple quarts in it just to get it to go to the store and back. And it would leave a little spot in the parking lot while it was there. And so it sat, and I haven't used it for like a year. I've just been working on other projects. So I got out here, I checked the fluid. It wasn't really showing only dipstick. I added about half a gallon, which is the most it ever needed. The reason I stopped driving this thing is because the fuel line and the fuel tank were full of rust, and it kept, I think it had a hole in the fuel line. It would leave fuel on the ground, which is bad, and then it would draw air into the system. And if you drove it regularly, it wasn't really an issue, but anytime it sat parked for more than a couple days, it was a real pain in the butt to start. So we're running off a gas can. I've just bypassed the fuel lines. It starts right up and it purrs like a kitten. Now, the big bummer with this truck is I was told an old man drove it every day. He kept it on the road. It's got some really funny bumper stickers on it. And then he passed away and this guy got it, and he did some work to it. So he put an aluminum radiator on it, and then I guess it had an exhaust leak. So I don't know if you can tell right there. Tried to put exhaust gaskets on it, and man, if you post in one of these truck groups and say you're putting exhaust gaskets on one of these old motors, it's like starting a fight over a religion. Like, some guys swear by gaskets and some guys say you don't need them, but somebody tried to put gaskets on this particular truck, and they broke the flanges off of the head, so it's got that exhaust tick, and it goes away some when it's warmed up, but it still comes back when you're on full throttle. I have two 460, sorry, I have two 460 engines laying around here. One is one that I built for another truck and I haven't put it in yet. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it yet. It's probably like a 400 horsepower build. It's flat top pistons and aluminum heads. And then I got this, which is supposed to be a stock, I haven't checked the block numbers, a stock 460 truck engine. And as you can see, it's got an Edelbrock carb on top of the stock manifold. And I have a HEI style distributor probably I'll put on. I like those because they're one wire. You don't have to worry about the rest of the ignition. I also have a 351 Windsor that I've been working on trying to get started. And I don't know whether that video of me trying to work on the 351 will get posted before this, but I thought about putting the 351 in this truck, but I really want the 460 in it. And I already have a two-wheel drive C6 transmission. And this guy bought a two-wheel drive truck that was supposed to have just been rebuilt. The transmission was just supposed to have been rebuilt, and he was swapping it to a four-wheel drive, so he pulled the transmission out, and I picked it up for him pretty cheap. And it's underneath this tarp here somewhere. So those are the four-wheel drive ones I have, and then this two-wheel drive one's back here. And like, he didn't have receipts for the rebuild or anything, but I mean, it's like fresh paint and everything on it. So the pan looked fresh, the new gasket on and everything. And that came with a brand new converter too. So I'm gonna try, it's a two-wheel drive, a C6 for a 460. So I'm gonna try and swap that in the truck with this Transdapt mounts. And of course, because I'm gonna be working on the subframe, to me it only makes sense to try and pull the front clip and do the engine and pull the front clip off, pull the engine out, which has to be done to get the subframe out, and then do the subframe and then put the engine back in. So this is probably going to turn into like a bigger build, but my goal for this is to just have like kind of like a weekend driver. I don't want to go crazy like with a restoration type thing, and I'm not going to go nuts with performance work, because at the end of the day it's a really big truck. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this thing yet, but it's been sitting for a year, and that's too long. So these trucks, these Supercab trucks, are really cool. They have this front bench, and then they have a rear bench that folds out, or they had jump seats. The jump seats are okay, but the rear bench is really cool. This is a brand new fuel tank for it. So I miss taking my kids for rides at donut shop and stuff. That's what we used to do, is we would take I would take the kids out for donuts. So as you can see, the interior on this thing is in pretty rough shape. Like it was a driver, so the seat's pretty carved out. Someone actually put Bondo on the floorboards. The dash pad is cracked, and then this is relatively new. The headliner is sagging down. I don't know if that means there's a leak in the roof or just the humidity. And then this old roof, like this thing was used as a work truck, so you can see it's got a couple dents in it. It's just overall, it's a pretty rough truck, but something about the way it looks, I just thought was so cool. When I saw it, I had to have it. I love the old mirrors too, the old like tow mirrors. This particular truck was a single, these trucks are available with a single tank behind the axle, an in-cab tank on the regular cabs, which had a fuel filler here on a regular cab, and then they also had an option of having a front tank, so a lot of them had dual tanks. But this truck has these weird saddle tanks. That's what's hanging down there. That's actually the fuel tank. And those things are like, they're like 3/8 plate. They're really heavy duty. You can see the welds kind of on the bottom. And like, I just can't imagine that anyone ever thought it was a good idea to have your fuel tanks hanging down that far right in front of the axle. But these are aftermarket saddle tanks. And that's factory fuel filler. You can see how it's recessed. And then this one here, you can see how it's just been added. It doesn't have that factory recess to it. And that goes down and fills those tanks. I'm gonna leave the filler door, but I'm gonna remove those tanks. There's no way I would ever feel comfortable using them even if they were new. But since these particular ones are almost as old as I am, probably not older, they're gonna get pulled out. And this is, I believe, a 75 Supercab, which I think is around the same year that other one is. The cab was really clean, so I picked this up off a friend. He bought this truck just for some parts. And at some point in time, I picked up a new front bench seat out of like I think this is a late 80s truck, because it doesn't have the headrest. I didn't want the headrest. the bench seat in that truck is really torn up. This truck needs floorboards, and you can see that I have new floorboards sitting in there, but most of the rest of this truck is good. I've tried to keep it up off the ground, so the corners and stuff aren't too bad. They just need a couple little spots touched up. The corners and the rust rails are where they usually rust out. The bad thing is it does have this little rust here, which is funny because this Supercab here, this is the one I originally built that Hot 460 for, is this one did the exact same thing on this side, and I ended up cutting out a piece from a junk truck and welding it in. I never got around to bondoing it. I just sanded it smooth. All right, I'm gonna get this loader out of the way and we'll see if this thing will actually move. The old girl just don't have the power to spin the tires this morning. I think the torque converter, the clutches or something are just messed up. So anyway, park it here and we'll see what leaks. And all right, so this truck is sat for a couple days now. And when I talk about a transmission leak, this is what I'm talking about. See that puddle? That's a lot of fluid. A couple days. We'll pull it forward and we'll see if it's still slipping as bad. Yeah, it's definitely still slipping quite a bit. I noticed on the dipstick it is foamy, and you can see that actually looks pretty foamy there too. The transmission fluid that's in this thing right now is a combination of Mercon and Type F, because I've been having trouble finding Type F anymore. Nobody sells it. I think my Napa is the only place that has it. Even AutoZone and Advance in my town don't have it anymore, which is crazy. But Ford went away from Type F in 77, which is, this truck is like a 76. Who knows if it's the original transmission, but the last stuff I put in there was Type F, and then when I topped off in that last video it was Mercon. And I've combined them before, but maybe these two are just incompatible. As you can see, that just doesn't look very healthy. I'm not sure if you can tell. There we go in the sun. You can see that's like a foamy milky color, and I don't think that's from water in there. I think it's just from those two fluids foaming. So I've run hydraulic oil through this a lot because that's what I've had around, and it's shifted great on hydraulic fluid. So I got a buddy of mine that services a lot of heavy equipment, and they end up recycling all their hydraulic fluid. So he said he'd probably bring me some. So if I can get a couple gallons of that, I'll just try and flush all this out, I guess. I think this motor is going to get pulled and replaced either way. So we'll see. But for now, this thing runs and drives, and I don't know how much longer that's going to be the case, because I really want to tear it down and try and get that Crown Vic subframe in here and maybe start working on the motor. So we had a couple deliveries here. We have Transdapt motor stands and motor mounts. These are for the 385 series, so 460 big block into a two-wheel drive FE truck, which this is. And then I also got these, which I haven't even opened yet. These are from Streetrays. They're supposed to be basically custom-made adapters. to bolt that Crown Vic. Well, you bolt and weld. You weld them onto your frame, and then they bolt the Crown Vic subframe on, because this frame is taller a little bit than the factory Crown Vic front. So the front clip comes off, and all this gets pulled, the motor comes out, and then you're left with a bare frame. And you weld in those mounts, and then the Crown Vic is supposed to be pretty much bolt on from there out. So I'm excited to start working on this thing some more. And I will see you guys on the next video. Hopefully this has been a good introduction to that project. If you want to see where it's going, subscribe. You'll get updates anytime I work on that, which hopefully once I free up a little more time with some other projects, it'll be my summer project this summer. So see you guys on the next video.